Goodstein, let me start with you. This is President Obama. You know, on one hand, I understand he says we don't want terror to disrupt our lives, but really the wave of Raul Castro, the tango in the aftermath of what happened in Brussels, even as a Democrat, you've got to be somewhat ashamed.
You know, it kills the opponents of President Obama that if you look at the Gallup poll, the gold standard...
I'm not talking about the Gallup poll. Come on, Richard.
My point is, you can pick at things, Charles. Look, when George Bush said after 9/11, which hit the U.S., which killed 3,000 Americans, he said, go shopping. That's the way to take on the terrorists.
Yeah, and he went to a baseball game and he did the tango the next day. Come on, Richard. There's got to be a point where even Democrats say that was ugly. That was poor taste.
No, listen, what would have been poor taste would have been to cower and, frankly, talk about securing Muslim neighborhoods and patrolling them or getting out of NATO or carpet bombing. That's what would have been bad. You know what measured leadership is? Doing what he's doing, going about his business. He addressed it. He addressed it, Charles.
All right.
But if you listen to Hillary Clinton yesterday talking about what we need to do, that's the standard, not, frankly, pulling in our horns.
Bryan Dean, right, he addressed it for 51 seconds before, you know, fawning over Raul Castro. I don't know. I mean, this is a serious issue. What's your take on how this should be handled and the seriousness of this threat?
Well, I'll tell you two things. First of all, as a Democrat, I was disappointed that he didn't tone it down a bit. You know, after you lose 30 folks in Europe to one of the greatest enemies that this nation has faced, I think you need to take that into consideration. That's the first piece. The second, we really have a problem and an issue here if we're not looking at the underlying reasons why these two punks did what they did, these two horrible individuals, right? If we have a president who a month ago went to a mosque in Baltimore, a mosque that yet years earlier had an imam who advocated for suicide bombing, right? That demonstrates something when we are in the midst of a great war, a great challenge against, as Islam has a fight for its own very soul. So there is an issue here of leadership, absolutely, and I think at the end of the day, particularly as a Democrat, it is a bit embarrassing that the president isn't acknowledging the fundamental challenge that we're facing here.
Rick, you know, ISIS also report that ISIS has unleashed 400 new killers into the continent of Europe, so everyone's bracing for more of this stuff. The indifference that was on display there only emboldens him, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, we're still looking for Americans. And while we're looking for Americans over in Brussels during the attack, you've got President Obama dancing. I mean, if you look closely, he's not even leading when he's doing the tango. He's behind.
He's a good actor. Yeah. And he leads from behind.
But he's leading from behind there. Look, I think that it's not only optics. Right. Imagine if he would have, while he was in Cuba, said to Castro, hey, let's change this backstop. Let's not go to a baseball game. Let's condemn what just happened. And I'm going to ask you, Mr. Castro, to condemn it in your best way. We would have then been sitting here talking about how he moved Cuba forward to condemn this violence. But he didn't do that. He went to a baseball game.
Thanks a lot, guys.